Hey, boys and girls. Yesterday, when we read, we saw Odysseus and his men escape Polyphemus, the Cyclops. However, Odysseus was arrogant and he told Polyphemus his name. And because of that, because of his arrogance, he now has a curse upon him. And I just want to remind you of that curse because it's very important. He says, Odysseus, may you never reach home. If you must reach home, may you lose your way, your ships, and all of your men. May you find only sorrow and trouble on your journey. So here's a point where Odysseus's character trait is super important. His arrogance is going to drive the plot of the rest of the story. So be thinking about that while we read. The palace of the wind god. Soon Odysseus and his men came upon a great rocky island. A huge bronze fortress gleamed beyond its shore. Sounds of joyful music and laughter came from within the fortress. Seafarers once told me about this happy kingdom, Odysseus said to his men. It is home to Aeolus, god of the winds. He lives with his 6 sons and 6 daughters. Night and day they feast on roasted meats and listen to the music of whistles and pipes. But how will they receive us? A Greek asked fearfully. Odysseus's men were still plagued with nightmarish memories of the Cyclops. The wind god is a friend to Zeus, said Odysseus. I believe he will honor the god's command that strangers must always be greeted with kindness. Odysseus's words proved to be true. When the Greeks climbed ashore on the rocky island, Aeolus welcomed them warmly. He even invited them to stay at his palace and visit with him and his family. Odysseus wished to be on his way as soon as possible, but he agreed to stay on Aeolus's island for a month. His men greatly needed to rest, and Odysseus had an idea of how the wind god might later help them get home. In the following weeks, while his men enjoyed the luxurious palace life, Odysseus told the wind god the story of the long war between the Greeks and the Trojans. He told him all about the wooden horse and the fall of Troy. Aeolus was grateful to hear such exciting tales. When Odysseus finished his stories, the god offered to give him a gift in return. I ask only one thing, Odysseus said. Will you help my fleet of ships get home safely to Ithaca? Will you spare us gales and storms and give us a gentle wind to open our sails? Aeolus enthusiastically agreed. He called together all the winds from the east and the west, and all the winds from the north and the south. At the god's bidding, each of the winds became perfectly still. Even fierce storm winds obeyed their master's command. Aeolus bundled all the world's winds into a sack made of oxhide, so none could hinder the Greek ships from sailing home. He left out only a gentle west wind that would carry them swiftly to Ithaca. The wind god tied the sack of winds with a silver cord and gave the bundle to Odysseus. Odysseus hid the sack in the hollow of his ship. He did not tell his men what was inside, for he did not want them to become lazy in their efforts to return home. Odysseus bade farewell to the family of the wind god. Then, with the help of the gentle west wind, he and his men pushed off from the rocky island. In the days that followed, the Greek fleet kept a safe, steady course. Odysseus was so excited to be returning to his family that he could not sleep. For 9 days and nights, he kept watch as the salty breeze swelled the sails of his ships. On the 10th day, in the distance, he finally saw the wooded hills that rose from the rocky shores of Ithaca. Odysseus rejoiced. He was home. The curse of the Cyclops had come to nothing. As the Greek ships drew closer to the island, Odysseus could see the smoke of cooking fires. Was Penelope, his beloved wife, preparing dinner for their son? The boy would be 10 now. and aged when he would most need a father. And were Odysseus's aging parents still alive? He prayed that they would be waiting to greet him. The balmy west wind, the gentle waves, weariness, all soon lulled Odysseus into a deep sleep. While he slept, some of his men began to grumble to one another. "What's inside the sack that the wind god gave our captain? I imagine it's filled with splendid gifts, gold and silver. Why is it only Odysseus who receives the wind god's gifts? We do all the work and receive nothing. Quick, before he wakes, let us search the ship and find what he hides from us." What word would you use to describe these men? I'm kind of thinking jealous. I wonder what will happen because of their jealousy. And so the faithless men searched the ship and found the wind god's gift. They untied the silver threads of the oxhide sack. Suddenly, the mighty winds of the world rushed out and swirled into a hurricane. The storm picked up the 12 ships and sent them flying wildly over the seas, far, far away from the shores of Ithaca. Odysseus leapt up from his sleep and frantically tried to change the ship's course, but it was too late. He could not fight the wild winds that his men had set free. In great despair, Odysseus thought of hurling himself into the sea, but he clung to the mast of his ship as the winds of the storm swept his fleet back the way they had come, all the way back to the island of the wind god. Once ashore, Odysseus ran to the god's bronze fortress. He found Aeolus feasting at the banquet table with his 12 children. Ashamed to present himself, Odysseus stood in the back of the hall, waiting to be noticed. One of Aeolus's sons was the first to see him. "What has happened, Odysseus?" he called out. "Why have you returned?" Odysseus stepped forward. He told Aeolus what his men had done. "I beg you to help us again to sail home," he said. "Will you again bundle the storm winds and give us the gentle west wind to ease our course?" "No, Odysseus," said the wind god in a low, angry voice. "You were cursed by the Cyclops, and now, indeed, the gods punish you. We can help you no more." Odysseus looked to the children of Aeolus, hoping to find pity, but they only stared at him in cold silence. "Begone now," said the wind god, "before we are punished for helping you. Leave this island at once." Odysseus knew the wind god spoke the truth. The curse of the Cyclops was truly upon him. The gods were punishing the Greeks for blinding Poseidon's monstrous son. Odysseus returned to his men and ordered them to put out to sea. Ashamed of their foolish act, the men rowed valiantly, but with no wind to help, their ships drifted on the sea day after day. As Odysseus stared at the hazy horizon, grief threatened to break his spirit. But each time he thought of Penelope and Telemachus, the fire of his determination to return to Ithaca was rekindled. "I will find my way back to my family again," he promised himself, and he leaned toward the horizon, yearning for home. Epilogue. So an epilogue happens after a story. That's because this book is in 3 parts, so we're going to get a brief epilogue before we start part 2. While Odysseus longed for home, his wife Penelope longed for his return. Over the years, news had often come to Ithaca of the fate of warriors who had been slain by the Trojans, or who had died at sea returning from the war. No word, though, had ever come to the island about the fate of Odysseus. Most people on the island assumed that Odysseus had died in battle or a shipwreck. Odysseus's mother had despaired of ever seeing him again and had taken her life. In his grief and despair, Odysseus's father had withdrawn to the country and lived in seclusion. But to everyone's amazement, Odysseus's wife held fast to the belief that her husband was still alive. Every day, as she wove cloth at her loom, she frequently glanced up, as if to catch sight of him walking in the door. Penelope most strongly sensed Odysseus's presence when she looked upon their son, Telemachus. As the boy grew older, he reminded her more and more of his father, tall and handsome, clever and brave. The boy often asked to hear stories about Odysseus. 1,000 times he imagined his father's ship sailing over the horizon. Penelope and Telemachus had no idea that Odysseus had been so close to them the night of the great storm. It was just as well. Sadly, neither mother nor son would lay eyes upon Odysseus for many more days, months, or even years to come. Whew, kind of left us hanging, didn't it? So things aren't going so well at home, and things surely aren't going very well for Odysseus and his men at sea. Here's what I want you to do. Go to the next slide, and I want you to think about these character traits. So I'm going to tell you, Odysseus is arrogant. That means he thinks a little too much of himself. He brags. He's got a bit of an attitude, doesn't he? At least he did with the Cyclops. So tell me, what happened because of his arrogance? What did that cause to happen? Then, let's do the same thing for his men who were foolish and jealous. What happened because they were foolish and jealous? These character traits are driving our plot forward, and it's really important that we think about them while we read. I can't wait to read the next part with you next week. It's called The Land of the Dead. Ooh, sounds spooky. See you then.